All right, are you ready for the first question of the night?
What is the first question?
First question of any podcast with me, and I'll do this bit when it comes on. The first and most important question of any podcast that I'm on is, what are you drinking?
I've got this.
Gluten-free beer?
Yeah.
Would you like to care to explain exactly what it tastes like or what it is?
It's a sorghum beer. Is that what we're doing? We're going to just review beer.
Well, for the first minute we are.
Alcohol.
I, as usual, am drinking the bold and smooth K-Vita Kombucha Master Brew Pineapple Peach.
That sounds terrible.
And once I finish the first fifth of it, I'll be replacing that with Botanical Blend Vodka from Kettle One. So, get that out of the way. All right, now that we've answered
How do we want to kick the video off? How do we want to be like, hey there, we're doing a podcast and this is who we are?
Well, we've answered the most important question of the night. Now the question is, what are we doing? Why are we here? And, what brought us here? Yeah, so this is the camera we're working with, though, right?
Yeah, this one might just be like, every so often we may just be like, and just like switch to the camera. Like if it's like, you know what I'm saying?
If we had better lighting, I would love to do some
This one never has good. This one never has good resolution. This one's bad. This one's like for like putting effects over top of it, like switching the camera angle and doing some kind of effect.
Well, that's my point. That's my point. Is I'd sometimes like to do like a.
Yeah, and that's what this camera is for. Okay. This camera's for that, and then I can just zoom in.
But my whole face is just going to be shadowed over here because of that.
Oh,
hat,
yeah, the hat.
Sailor Jerry here. I mean, I could just be bald. I don't care.
You just have to take your hat off when you have anything really important to say.
It's fine.
What's the name of our podcast?
The Higher IQ Hangout.
No. Did we like the O Marina? Battling bias or something else?
Whatever you want.
We have to decide.
This is the
Is this going on our open-minded path, or our Covenant of the Open Mind channel?
This is going on whatever you want.
Or should we make a new channel?
I think we're going to go through a couple different things and figure out what gives us like a good cadence and a good content.
But we're going to be talking about like other commenters on YouTube. We're going to be talking about like there's going to be
like,
drama, there's going to be politics.
If that doesn't work, then like maybe we pivot out of it and we talk about philosophy. Because like I can go pull up some philosophy YouTube right now.
No, I think that we should just have the freedom to talk about whatever topics we want. And I think we should put it on a separate channel, but then I could plug it on my main channel.
Yeah, I think the philosophy ones are better done. At least having watched through them once by yourself and like collecting your thoughts. I'm probably not gonna ever say the name, and it'll probably be episode 10 before I remember.
Okay, well, what do you want?
No, it's fine. It's gonna be any name.
Hey guys, Tate and I are recording a podcast. We're not organized.
Then I'm gonna be like,
I want to call it the Om Arena, the open-minded arena where we battle bias.
And I'm gonna be like, like we're doing the Buddhist thing where we're going Om.
Exactly, that's why it's clever. But also,
or we're like electrical engineers and like an Om of resistance.
There could, that's good. Ooh, I didn't think about that. There could be an Om Arena. I have not Googled it yet.
Man, I love how this light makes my hair look great.
Should we put powder on your head?
No, I just need to fucking like shave my head.
What is the procedure? Do you powder?
It's fine. If we're gonna make this regular, then I'm just gonna like buzz my hair or like shave my head or something, like,
Why don't you stop slouching?
Oh my god! All right, fine. I'm gonna have to like grow out a beard so that I don't have like a nothing chin.
Okay.
I'm never on.
This is a new podcast series where Tate and I are going to just watch videos together on YouTube, and we'll show you clips of them, and we're just gonna talk about them, and hopefully have some good conversations. So we decided to start with a channeler, someone who does seem like they might have, at least at one point in time, spent too much time on 4chan.
I think we're probably only ever going to be talking about people who are terminally online. So
the thing is that I don't disagree with everything I've seen this person say or do. And I don't have much exposure to anything this person has published. But Tate likes him, and I have watched a little bit of it, and I think we could have a lot of discussion on it.
Let me preface here by saying that back during the Kanye West circling the drain phase of the internet's, I don't know, that drama cycle, I was constantly getting recommended on YouTube and on Reddit, this Vaush guy. And normally I keep away from the Twitch streamers and the YouTubers and stuff like that. I think their content is like geared to be much more cringy and much more like towards kids, and it's just like, and like for every good take they'll have a terrible take, and they'll just be surrounded by like people who never go outside and touch grass, and it's just like, it's usually terrible. But during the Kanye cycle, it was just like hot take after hot take, and I was just really into it. So I was like, you know what, maybe I should give these people a chance.
Hot take, and, wait, as in good? Like you liked what they were saying?
Yeah, they had good takes. Okay. Well, Vaush had good takes.
Hot take is a good take.
A hot take.
What's a bad take called? A cold take?
It's a cold take. Yeah, it's
okay.
It's
who made what is this terminology from?
Frigid take.
Frigid.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's a hot take.
Good.
A hot take. It's like a spice take. It's dramatic.
Okay.
If we've got to go through all of our internet lingo, this is going to take forever. Anyways, but I was getting into this, and now we've realized that there's a much larger community of like debate bros and video essayists, and you know, it's very controversial.
And they all like hate each other.
Yeah, if you like one, you have to hate everyone else.
That's why I wanted to call it the O Marina, because I'm like, look, let's battle. These people are battling. This is a war.
So just like how they all react to each other, we're just going to react to them.
We're just going to react to them like the way they all react to each other, and you guys are going to watch some bystanders just have some opinions about this video essayist war that's going on. I hope that entertains you.
I don't know if we're gonna do the one. The video you linked me before was like a video essayist basically being upset by Vaush and like
that's
a streamer.
Like
channels.
A response to a response to a response. Yeah. We got to go to like some source material. We got to just watch some of these people and just be like, okay, which one of these people do we think has the moral high ground? Like at the very least, you know, like which one of these people has better content? I don't know.
We're gonna find out. Okay.
Who is good? Who is bad? At online commentary. Here is your commentary to help you know. Let's go. Let's watch it.
Context before we get into this one. This one's Vaush and a segment he did where he got interviewed on the Young Turks. Do you know who the Young Turks are?
Are they young and Turkish?
They're a group of Turkish guys who made an independent media outlet. Like this was, I think, like 7 or 8 years ago now, and they made a big stir when they created themselves, and now they're just kind of like a smaller online only pseudo news source. And they'll get online personalities, and they'll comment more on online subjects more so than like mainstream media. But they have this sort of appeal of like a larger like CNN or Fox News or whatever. That's why you're going to see these tiles and all this stuff, because they're trying to be like, here, we're the big people. Anyways.
Are they as big as those?
No, they're definitely not.
Okay, they're definitely
but they're independent, which is important.
I'm Amanda Kasparian, and we are about to have a fantastic interview about an issue that I've been trying to think about more, grapple with more, and it has to do with the crisis among young men, specifically in America. So let's talk about it. Recently, there were some statistics by healthcare company Cigna indicating that men are the loneliest generation. In fact, 18 to 24-year-olds are lacking friends.
Okay, first of all, what is this?
What is this like
in the
video
middle?
setup?
What is this chick in the middle doing? Because she's like obviously not like responding to anything that people are actually saying.
Yeah, I don't know what her deal is. Like, see, so this stream, this is not important at all. This stream though is like from Vaush's perspective. Whereas, like, from the Young Turks' perspective, I think it's just, like, that bottom right screen, and that's all you're supposed to see.
Oh.
But, like, this is all the people in the video call, so, like, we're getting Vaush's, like, less scripted. It's less polished, okay?
Okay.
I think that's what's going on.
Intimate partners, they're feeling increasingly alienated from society. And when you look at statistics in regard to their education, whether or not they're working, more and more of this data reinforces that there is something awry.
But the bottom right is like what you'd be seeing airing if you were watching the Young Turks.
What is everyone's obsession with statistics?
People like statistics.
But they use it, it's almost like they believe that because they're statistics, it's like, okay, this is a real problem because there's statistics. But I'm like, you could identify a real problem theoretically as well by just being like, this is the way we treat people in society. That might cause a problem. Why do they
it's
spout the statistics? Like I can tell she's okay. Let's watch it. She's priming us up. She's about to spout statistics. Wait for it. Then we'll talk about it.
It does mean that we should be focused on what it is in society that is leading to this epidemic, what the left can do to offer solutions, and how we can basically fight back against the more nefarious figures who have filled the void that men are struggling with, people like Jordan Peterson and what have you.
We'll get to the Vaush section.
Do pause
first.
it whenever you want to pause it.
But I guess the first question is like, do you agree that there's a problem here, or do we need to contextualize this further?
Yes, I agree that there is a problem.
Okay.
But the problem we're talking about is that men don't have support systems and aren't allowed to have their feelings. Right?
Yeah.
So they don't know what to do about it, and they just repress things until they explode. And that's why 90% of whatever statistic, these people care about statistics. I just make up statistics.
So I can even pull up. There was one on Reddit yesterday.
Most of the people that do shootings are men, right? That's all I mean.
Well,
so it's
yeah, and
that's for a reason. So obviously there is a problem. So
well, there's a lot of different ways to bring it up, but yeah, I mean shootings and I think they talk about disorders of despair or something like that, or diseases of despair.
Yeah.
There was an article that was posted on Reddit a day or two ago that was basically talking about how men have less they did some statistical number that showed men are trending towards having fewer close friends, and some have no close friends, and so you're ending up with more and more men as opposed to a decade or 2 decades ago. A significant number more men don't have any friends, and they're basically feeling very isolated in our society. It's that's a big problem. I
think that's probably not as much of a gendered issue as people think. I think everyone is alienated, and that it's hard for a lot of people to maintain friendships in today's world because social media exhausts people, and then they just don't want to spend their energy on actual friendship.
Now, when you have the 6 hours, we're going to go through the Self Under Siege series by Rick Roderick.
Okay, you watched the first one of those, and it wasn't bad.
It's absolutely fantastic. But that kind of gets at this, at least tangentially gets at this point of it's very hard to be an individual, and it's very hard to connect with people in the modern society. Yeah. Anyways, just going to plug a bunch of philosophy whenever I can.
Okay.
But specifically for this, though, this is more talking about how Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate more recently, because, sorry, do you know the recent drama with Andrew Tate?
No.
He just got arrested in Romania on sex trafficking charges, and
who is Andrew Tate?
Oh God, you're so out of the loop.
Why do I care about this person?
Andrew Tate is the hottest, worst version of JP. If you thought JP and we were going to argue about JP was bad, Andrew Tate is juicy. We're gonna have to.
Okay, we'll watch some of that later.
We're gonna go.
We're gonna start with Vaush. Here we go. Let's watch some Vaush.
Yeah, basically, there's a bunch of self-help guys that are appealing to young men, and people are trying to figure out why these right-leaning self-help guys are so popular. That's kind of tying into this conversation.
Now, recently, Vaush, who's a popular streamer, had tweeted this thread that I think is really, really important to address. He writes, "I cannot stress enough how important it is to understand that 12-year-old white boys on Twitch are not being pulled into fascism because of some Machiavellian desire to preserve and expand their privileges. It's because the right talks to them and the left doesn't." He continues to argue that leftists and progressives have absolutely no idea how unnecessarily repellent they come off to so many people, and they get angry at the idea of being a more effective social movement because they don't want to share their social spaces with people who might have gone another way. But the criticism for leftists continue, and to be honest, I agree with a lot of what Vaush says here. He says leftists will write master's theses on the effect of socioeconomic conditions on crime, and then shrug when 10 million more young men fall into fascism because their boy brains must just be innately fascist and they choose to be evil, and there's no way this could have been prevented.
Who says that boy brains must be inherently fascist? Who is saying that? Who has said that? Who?
I don't know if we need to go deeper into the woods here. This is the third part of Vaush's take on this. So obviously they're quoting Vaush here to give you some background. Vaush is basically reacting to some leftists online. So there's specific people that he's reacting to, and we can go back and dig
those
back
people are insane. And why is anybody spending time talking about their delusional nonsense?
Well, because...
obviously, boys are not innately fascist.
Well, and this is a little bit hyperbolic, and you know, this is part of the reason why I don't usually like the debate bros and that kind of stuff, because like the hyperbolic nature distracts from the arguments. But yeah, I mean, I do agree and understand, and I hope we'll get to it in this video. But I do agree and understand that like there is a faction of the left, and there is a leaning in certain leftist communities, and whether these are like just Discord channels or whatever, that really does go like, men are rapists, men are like inherently like problematic, especially like cis white men, and they have to like be sort of deprogrammed out of their, you know, cultural or genetic predispositions before they can be of use to
genetic predispositions. They've proven where the rape gene is, right? I'm sure they've identified that gene in the genome before they're talking shit out their ass. And that's why the rest of us are spending time on their ideas, because they're obviously well-founded.
I think the point of this, and maybe we do need to get into the weeds on it, but I think the point of this is mostly just that, like, obviously these are kind of ridiculous takes, but the further problem is that, like, even if you don't have the more radical take that all men are rapists or whatever, it's just that the left doesn't have a whole lot of great narratives, and the right will parade out these most extreme groups, and it will alienate people who don't really have a good direction in our society or in our culture, and so men will feel like the left-leaning communities think they're rapists, will feel like they're, you know, antagonistic towards them, and that's what this whole video is about. Is like, well, we need to like sort of rebrand and change that image, because there's obviously a place for men in the left, but if all they're hearing is Jordan Peterson talking about how like all women think they're rapists and all this stuff, then it's like, yeah, maybe you've lost like a whole generation to your movement, and like that's problematic, right?
I sincerely doubt that they're actual fascists. So,
yeah.
What do we mean that we've lost them?
Write this down on the napkin here.
Can we all just stop for a second? This is why I hate statistics, okay? Because every single person in this video, in all videos that I've seen from commentary YouTubers, they're talking about everyone as a whole, like generically, and these are individual people who have feelings and an ego, a sense of self. They have, like, how can you possibly just be like, all of them have this, all of them are not being spoken to the way they need to be? Like, the problems with society are not going to be solved by more commentary YouTube. I don't agree. I don't believe in that, because I don't think these people have anything wrong with them in the first place.
So, well, and I think you have a larger point that you're going to get to, but let me react to that first and just say that I was kind of on board with the idea that, like, especially like the sort of online YouTuber or groups or whatever, like what is really the utility and value of like debating people online or like doing even this kind of stuff? Like, you know, do we really think this is going to accomplish anything, or is it just like, you know, masturbatory? Is it just sort of like, you know, mental masturbation, making ourselves feel good because we're putting ourselves out there and we're talking about things?
Yeah, we're just stroking it here.
Well, I think that's what a lot of people are doing, but this is, I think, the thing that really hooked me on Vaush is he gave an explanation a while back as to like the sort of quote unquote pipelines that people use to, I don't want to say indoctrinate. It seems like really radical, but this idea that like it is these overarching messages that you can find either from a specific YouTuber or from Fox News or just like generally within your culture and your society that do move people left or right. And you need people at like sort of every stage of like, you know, maybe centrist to right or right to left. If you want to pull people over to your side of the political spectrum.
If you want to manipulate people en masse, that's my whole point. That's my larger point. Okay. I don't care about manipulating people.
You're not a leftist or a rightist.
And I don't understand why anybody does care about manipulating people en masse, because nothing ever really changes, no matter how much it seems like it changes. So
can we apply
such a waste of time?
Can we apply a label to you here and say that
you're a
sort of banal,
centrist? The only label,
centrist.
No, the only label that I will accept is the objectively correct one, which is a liberal libertarian. I took the quiz. The political quiz.
Are
I
you
am on
talking
the exact same part of the quiz as Gandhi.
Are you talking about the political compass?
I don't remember the name of the actual site,
It's
but
4 quadrants.
It's 4
and you
quadrants.
answer- You're
Yeah,
talking
the
about
political compass. Okay, that sounds right.
Most people say that that's not a very authoritative source of political leanings, though it is a good touch point.
I thought it was the least biased quiz that I have ever personally taken.
Well,
and I think it's the most accurate because it's right. I am a liberal libertarian.
Don't worry,
that's a fact.
We're gonna do a deep dive on political compass and political compass memes and how they're probably gonna get banned any day now. So we'll cover that at some point.
Okay, let's keep talking about Vaush.
Okay.
And then the final tweet, because I want to make sure you guys get a full look at what he's thinking here. This is always a good topic to feel smug over because the replies and quote tweets are saturated with people who literally think, quote, we should care about men's problems and offer them advice is a dog whistle for we should build a Fourth Reich, thus proving the problem. Now, joining us today to talk about this is the man behind the Twitter thread, Vaush. And I want to thank you, Vaush, for taking some time to talk to us about this today.
Oh, it's an absolute delight.
It's an absolute delight.
We're going to have to get YouTube Red if we want to do this seriously.
Or we could just download the video.
Don't mind the cam, by the way. Like young men, my camera encoder is alienated, just in this case from Skype. It's a pleasure to talk with you about this.
So this is something that I've been thinking about a lot because I've been just noticing it in the community around me, just like the loneliness and how atomized men are. And I don't see it as, addressing it isn't, in my opinion, a right-wing perspective or a right-wing task. I think that there are issues that the left would do a far better job in addressing as opposed to more nefarious right-wing figures like, let's say, Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson. So before we get to all of that, what the potential solutions could be, talk to me about what you see, what you think the problem is right now with young men feeling alienated in the United States.
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to something leftists tend to be more comfortable talking about, which is toxic masculinity, Male loneliness is often an emergent property of toxic masculinity, which is, by the way, nobody likes this term, right? The right gets really upset when you say toxic masculinity because it sounds like you're upset with masculinity in general, and it's a really vague term. So let's just say, I think a lot of guys can be kind of antisocial because they're taught that sort of independence is a masculine virtue. They're taught that...
Being social is obviously so gay, okay? Only gay men are ever social. It's not, you can't be social. That's not for men, okay? Obviously.
No.
Who says that? Who says these things? Who said this to this man that he thinks that that's what people think?
This is a reformulation of the thing that you said earlier, though, which is that, men have to hold their emotions in, and they're taught to be, more stoic and these kinds of things. This is a different way of expressing a similar point. Maybe he has a different inflection on it, but
no.
This is what he...
Men are not taught to be stoic. Being stoic is, I don't have a reaction. Okay? Men are told that they are not allowed to have certain kinds of reactions. Right? They're told they're not allowed to have their feelings. That doesn't stop the feelings. They're not really experiencing stoicism by its proper definition. They're still having the feelings unconsciously, and they're being repressed and pushed down. And that's what causes those feelings to later come out in a misguided way, like often as anger, because men tend to be more aggressive, more prone to act. And therefore, their frustration is going to be more likely to look like anger than it would be the case for a woman. So I think that it's different. That we don't tell our men that they have to be stoic. We tell our men that they can't have feelings, because for the longest time, the function of men in society, unless you were the elite class of society, the function of men was to do the physical labor, go to war and die for us, okay? So men were not treated in any capacity in society as anything more than someone you could sacrifice for some societal gain. And having feelings makes it harder for those people to be effective taking orders and taking commands and being soldiers and dying for their country, right? You go to the military and they strip any sense of emotion out of you. Like, they cause you to dissociate from your own ego. Like, you are not an individual in the military. You are not a person. You are a machine. You are a part. Okay? You are a single individual piece of a large system. That's it. And that is how the whole world treated men. Okay? For thousands of years. Thousands. Thank you, Rome. Which is why, again, Peter's like, oh, Rome is the best country. Peter's a fucking idiot.
We gotta be anti-Roman.
We have to make a whole video about how stupid Peter
You know what?
is.
No, we gotta take it all back. This whole podcast is gonna be the anti-Rome podcast.
The anti-Rome.
We gotta say Delenda est Rome.
I don't speak Latin because Latin is for neckbeards.
Oh God, you don't even know enough about the Punic Wars.
That's a good soundbite. Okay.
Do you want me to explain this real quick?
No.
It takes 2 seconds.
I'm
gonna do it anyway.
Okay, so all I'm saying is, as Vaush said, I guess women should shut. What did he say? He said some ridiculous thing. Anyway,
this is unrelated to the video we were watching. He was memeing something. He
maybe
said,
women should shut up.
Women should shut up and like.
I read that and I was like, "Hey, Vaush, I'm gonna apologize right now for the fact that no, I don't think I could shut up if I wanted to. Sorry."
No. That's like you have to watch him a little bit to know that. At least in that comedy, he was obviously being sarcastic if you watch like any of them.
Okay, whatever, I don't care. But all I'm saying is that men...
maybe I'm a Vaush apologist. Maybe he's just...
Maybe you're just an apologist. Maybe he's just sexist. Okay, all I'm saying is that men were treated for a very long time as disposable. And that's why in today's society, women are so frustrated with them, because women have had to have a standard of emotional regulation. It's just been the expectation. So women are essentially more emotionally mature than men in our society today and historically. So why are you doing that? Don't be doing that.
I'm just doing bit pieces while you're talking. Just trying to add the little spice of life over here. You know how like the video essayists, like ContraPoints and the guy you had me watch, like they're constantly like
they add that in editing.
I will say that streamers and video essayists realize that you need to have hooks in to make everything.
Right, but they do that in editing so that they don't interrupt someone being passionate.
We don't need editing.
Yes, we do.
We've got Kettle One.
Oh my fucking God.
The delicious botanical blend, grapefruit and rose.
How
accents.
Of all people did I get trapped in a room with you?
You wanted this. You asked for it.
I did. I asked for this. Well, anyway. Stop it. Oh my God, you're so weird.
Just trying to advertise my favorite liquor sales.
Jesus. I need Jesus.
I need Jesus. Hey, she's not wrong.
Said the witch.
Men are not taught to bottle their feelings up. They are taught that male feelings don't matter.
Okay.
And they just bottle them up because they're not taught how to deal with their feelings in a healthy way. And they don't feel like they're allowed to have feelings. And then even when they do, it often seems like their feelings don't matter to people because people are like, well, just man up.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That is the toxic
don't
masculinity,
cry,
right?
Kind of stuff, right?
So I agree that toxic masculinity is the problem, but I struggle with the phrasing of men are taught to bottle it up because I think that the bottling up of feelings is a symptom of the problem and not the actual problem.
But isn't that what Vaush was just saying, that he thinks toxic masculinity is a symptom? Well, sorry. So you're saying it's multiple symptoms. He's saying toxic masculinity, and this idea of toxic masculinity is a symptom of the cultural trend to bottle up emotions. You're saying that's a cultural symptom or trend of something else. What is it?
Well, so it's not really a trend, okay, because it's been thousands of years. I think people are overestimating how much this alienation is a gendered issue. I think that everyone feels alienated right now in particular because social media is really exhausting. And when you spend time on social media, it makes you feel like you have friends, but it's really exhausting. So then you don't have time or energy for your actual friends.
Well, let me ask you, what do you think, if you had your way, how would you try and fix the sort of like parasocial behavior or the sort of like trend towards online socializing that you are saying is somewhat problematic here.
Well, that's why the Jews have the Sabbath. That's why you're not allowed to use your phone on Shabbat. You put it away and you don't interact with people on technology because the day is about appreciating the people you care about. They say appreciating God, okay? You don't have to be that involved. You don't have to love Jesus. You don't have to love God to be religious. You could just say
Well,
this day.
I'm not sure that the Jews do love Jesus.
No, but I'm saying you don't have to be invested in faith in some metaphysical being to have a set of spiritual practices and routines that are just good for you. And so I think the modern religion looks less like do this, do that because God said so, and more like do this and do that because these are good things that help this group of people be successful in society. Like Jews are good at being in society. Why do you think that is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm
You
trying
know,
to.
there's good reasons why they're good at being in society, and one of them is that they reject society and walk away from it and live in their homes with God and their families for 24 hours once a week. No cell phones. Can't even turn the lights on and off. They stay on or off. That's it. So it's like a whole 24 hours once a week. They just disconnect from it all. That has immense value for anyone.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess to try and normalize that outside of the example you had, I guess I would say what you're getting at is that we should have a sort of cultural norm
Yeah.
that enforces, hanging out in physical spaces or disconnecting from like the
From
online
technology.
spaces. If you're liberal or neoliberal, I forget the various communities, but you want the third spaces, you want the walkable communities, you want do those terms make any
None
sense?
of those terms
Okay,
register
okay.
in my
Sorry.
brain.
Oh, well, we're
I'm
gonna
sorry.
watch enough Vaush that eventually we'll get there.
Listen,
Don't worry.
I don't really participate in society very much. I participate the bare minimum amount to be successful. And the only reason I think I'm capable of that is that I am a Jew because I feel like I have a dissociative disorder and I would just be like in my own headspace and be like a homeless crazy person. But I'm Jewish, so like I can't not be good with money. I can't not have a budget. I can't not have a job. I don't know. I just like was raised in this culture of being independent and self-sufficient and where it's acceptable to disengage from society. It's acceptable for Jews to disengage from society for 24 hours once a week. We allow it. We all are okay with it. We know it happens and everyone accepts it. And that's amazing. But that doesn't happen for anyone in any other religious faith. They don't have that separation.
What about the Amish?
Well, the Amish people do have separation from society in the sense that they're isolated in their own society.
Yes.
Okay, but I don't know that they get the same separation that you would experience in a Jewish household because, Jewish people are very engaged and connected and they're often activists, they're very involved, they're often lawyers, lobbyists, bankers, right? So they're involved in society all the time.
The Amish are more disconnected.
The Amish are disconnected. So even if you were to argue, okay, they take a day to be disconnected, it's like, what is the comparative value of them taking a day to be disconnected when they're always a degree of disconnected that is so extreme? It's like, what does it mean for them to disconnect from their society? They don't do that, right?
Yeah,
At no point in time does an Amish person say, I'm going to go off from my society and do something I'm not supposed to do. It's very strict. And the people that don't want to be a part of that strictness leave or they become Mennonite, which means that they can, on occasion, still be in society. Right.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to get into the Amish question here, but
I spent a lot of time around the Amish. My family lives in Lancaster, cow country.
It's fine. We don't have to get into that. I guess my point is I'm trying to like draw some bounds around where you're saying like, the Jewish community is a good example of this, but it's like, how can we abstract that out to a larger point? I'm not
abstract it out to a larger point. Every person should just pick a day. It doesn't have to be 24 hours, just a 12-hour period where they wake up and they only look at their phone to know what time it is, if they look at their phone at all. Like a holiday. They wake up, they do their lives, they don't care what time it is, what they have to do. You need to set aside time in your life to do that. And that doesn't mean that you're not doing stuff or that you're not working, okay? In Judaism, you're not allowed to work. You're not allowed to do any labors that resemble the labors required to build the Temple of Jerusalem. So you're not allowed to work. You could carry a mattress up and down the stairs 17 times as long as there's no point to it. But if you're carrying the mattress up the stairs because you need a mattress upstairs, it's not allowed. That's the literal rule. That's the actual rule in Orthodox Judaism. I'm not making that up. That's not commentary. So that's a little bit like unnecessarily extreme. It's like if you are the kind of person who wants to cook and you find joy in cooking, then you should do that on your Sabbath, right? Even though that's a labor that you're not allowed to do in Judaism, you're not allowed to cook on the Sabbath. But you should do that if cooking is what makes you feel close to God. It's like you should play video games if that's how you unwind. But what you shouldn't do is be invested in an online community that is heavily like socially interactive. So I play Teamfight Tactics on my mobile phone, and you can't even read the chat. So I may as well be playing against a computer.
You do
Right.
realize you're talking about a League of Legends adjacent game?
Yes, League of
Just saying,
Legends
you know.
adjacent.
League of
It's
Legends
fun.
game, you might as well be like
I'll
at
play
least,
any tactics game.
at least in
really.
the top 10% of toxicity in the world.
No,
You're
but
gonna-
I don't open the chat. The chat. So all the people I'm playing with are just like they may as well be robots. Like it's not. You know what I mean? And I interact with them in a really fun sort of way. So I always like have to wind up in the middle of the spatula, and I go to if people, we have the similar skins or something, I go to the arena and I circle around them, and we just interact in a way that is aloof. And I don't go to the comments and get invested in the interaction between people. I'm just playing a game.
You just outed yourself as a League of Legends player.
I don't really play League of Legends. I
know
play
you don't need
Teamfight
more.
Tactics.
But at some point in your life you did.
I
Which
did play
means
League of Legends.
You're probably a
and-
toxic piece of shit.
Probably.
Probably. Statistically speaking,
Statistically.
it's unlikely that you're not a toxic
This
piece of
is the
shit.
reason why I think statistics are stupid. Because statistics are dehumanizing.
Well, it's okay. I'll out myself to the community. I'm,
He's a
some-
diamond,
I-
so that means he's not just a toxic League of Legends player. Okay.
I'm the top 1%.
He's a tryhard.
I'm amazing at League of Legends. And, I have played League of Legends since the game came out. And,
Since the game, he has. Actually, I've known him that long.
yeah, tragically. But I will say, eventually,
Verified.
eventually you just like, the toxicity just rolls over you and you just like,
I am nourished by your hatred. This is the thing. Even if I was in very toxic spaces, the toxicity doesn't soak into me. It's just like when.
Yeah. See, this is the arc of a League of Legends player. We're here. What we're gonna name the podcast is the League of Legends. Sorry, I don't know what the fuck we're gonna name it, but it's gonna be some sort of League of Legends adjacent
We just
thing.
see if anybody even watches our podcast before we care about what's going on.
No. The name is really important. The point though is that we're gonna get into the League of Legends space, and we're gonna destroy the narrative that League of Legends players are toxic, because really what's happening in the League of Legends community is that you're going through a very important cycle of personal development where you start to care about it. Like first of all, you disengage, and then you start to care about it, and then you become extremely toxic and maladaptive to society, and you just become like the scum of the earth. But then, if you engage with it long enough, you come out the other side as a beautiful fucking butterfly who just like who just sheds off negativity.
You shed your negativity,
and you just
open your wings and flap.
I'm gonna say eventually you get to the point where it's just like online toxicity just becomes like trite, and it becomes like a sort of like a man. There's a lot of kids on the internet these days, isn't there?
My heart be still. Yeah. Everyone's being toxic. Oh, it's just so homey.
It's okay.
It feels so good.
If we get enough hits about the League of Legends portions, I'll start streaming games, and I'll just
stream games.
My whole bit in games is either to be overwhelmingly positive or just like go in and then just take the first person who's negative and just like egg them on into.
What could we name our channel that would allow me to also stream Minecraft to it?
Minecraft?
Yes. I have a very impressive server. It's very impressive.
I mean, I don't know. Vaush does Minecraft. So.
He does, and just his regular channel. Okay, so I'm just like the female version of Vaush, apparently.
So he'll talk like this, and then like
Vaush and I should get in a room one day and see if we just annihilate each other, because that's how we'll know that we're the opposite.
Like Minecraft, but he will do it for the social aspects.
Oh, he doesn't like Minecraft? Never mind. We can never be friends.
He doesn't think Minecraft is a well-designed game for its mechanics, but he likes the social aspects of it.
None of the mechanics in Minecraft are supposed to be good. The
Yeah,
point is
I
that you're
agree.
supposed to be stupid good at the game, even if you play on
I'll
hard
come out.
mode.
I'll come out as an anti-Vaush here and say that his takes on video games are
Anti-Bosch.
bad.
He's got bad video games.
I'm gonna say like he's got a lot of video game takes that are like correct, but the way he gets there are like problematic.
Okay.
And as a real video game enthusiast, I can say like he's. No, I mean, I'm joking a bit, but it's clear that he has like a sort of, he has a take on video games that a lot of people have when they don't have like a formal education in like how video games are made, but they're like passionate about video games.
He doesn't have a formal education in video games.
But it's like he's very passionate about the space, and so when he talks about video games, he'll talk about like them as if he knows what he's talking about. And in certain things he does. I think in certain aesthetic aspects he's got a good eye for things, but in other things I'm kind of like. Bad take though.
Okay, we will have to review Vaush's video game take.
I'm just saying, as somebody
video.
who's both educated in the space and has made, crappy games that no one will ever see, I feel like an authority.
Okay, so this half of the podcast,
Beat my dog.
we are gonna actually. I'm not beating him.
my God,
That's
you're
what dogs like.
Oh my god.
That's what dogs like.
Blue.
You want to see what
Are
dogs
you
like? Watch this. I love you. Kiss you in your nose. You are a good dog. Perfectly good. That's you. Smart. Why doesn't your daddy talk to you? You're so smart. You're so smart. He doesn't talk to you enough. He doesn't talk to you, smart man. He should talk to you like you're just a person. Oh, just get down. Oh, just get down.
Dude, you're getting him riled up.
He's a good dog.
We'll keep up.
He's a good dog.
Yeah.
He's
You
a
are
really
a good
good
dog.
He's a really good one.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we're back on the Vaush train over here.
Back on Vaush.
We definitely didn't get sidetracked for the last.
We
hour.
definitely didn't get sidetracked.
Definitely not. That never happens here. So we're going back in. I think we were just talking about toxic masculinity, how it's alienating the right, and we just had a whole conversation. Let's go back in.
Okay.
Obviously, it's pretty harmful. It makes people feel kind of lonely. It makes them bad at reaching out to others, connecting, sharing their interests, building friendships. I think it's one of the reasons why guys tend to view dating as sort of adversarial, because they don't think of like a woman as like, oh, well, maybe we'll just get along on some shared interests. Maybe we'll have something in common. They think of it as this like a mating battle, which, I don't think it has to be. And as a product of that, a lot of guys feel like they have no social inroads and they're kind of drifting through life without connections to people. It really sucks. Mm-hmm. And the left could, use that as an opportunity to maybe improve some people's lives, introduce them to some other ideas.
So
Sorry. Use what? To improve people's lives. What is he talking about?
So I guess we maybe should back up a little bit. But the whole idea that he's purporting here is just that like the left needs to have healthy narratives around like basically how men should act and how they should approach women, or like they should at least just be open to the idea of like they should ride the line between like masculinity as a positive concept while still maybe disabusing more traditional senses of it that were used prior to the 21st century that are maybe outdated. Maybe I'm reading into it too much, but I think that's where we were at with the conversation. We can get into it. They'll go over it a bunch. Don't worry.
Just full disclosure, when the statistics first started coming out and they focused primarily on the lack of intimate partners, to be fair and completely honest with the audience, I was definitely more dismissive. But then when you see the other statistics, including the lack of friends, workforce participation for prime working age men between the ages of 25 and 55 has actually decreased significantly, and specifically in the United States. And so, there have been some arguments that, it's the advancement of technology, it's because of video games. Well, all of these technologies exist in other countries, and they're not experiencing the same decline in workforce participation. In fact, to give you a specific number from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, about 7 million prime working age men are not working and they're not looking for work. They're also self-medicating quite a bit. A huge portion of them have reported that they're taking painkillers daily. Deaths of despair are very prominent and pronounced among the male population versus the female population. These are huge issues. In fact, the Bureau of Labor Statistics also noted that when it comes to unemployment among working age men, we have a 1937 economy. Okay. And again, this is not happening in other rich developed countries, right? So there is a crisis happening, and I'm trying to figure out what is it exactly, right? The right wing will say, oh, it's feminism. It's because women don't want to stay at home and raise kids. They want to be independent. They don't want to enter, romantic partnerships, blah, blah, blah. I don't buy that for a second. I do agree that some of the rhetoric is a problem, statements about toxic masculinity, a lot of generalizing about people. I also think that there's a misconception that this is an issue that predominantly impacts white males, but that's actually not the case. The largest population that this impacts is actually Black men in America. And so this is a huge problem. And what do you think we need to say or frame, or how can we frame this issue so it's more palatable to the left, who, generally do want to ensure that every community is looked after, that everyone feels that, they're living a happy, prosperous life?
It's a tough sell. People feel these issues in their gut. When we talk about the kinds of things that drive people to vote or even to...
Well, I want to touch on this a little bit. Basically, they've laid out the problem and the specific thing that they're trying to solve. So I feel like maybe that was a little confused earlier. I feel like you're going to bite my head off because it's intuitively understood, but I want to explain it a little bit here, which is just that basically what they're saying is that young men, black, white, whatever, in our society are not succeeding. They don't want to find work. They're not happy.
Only 7 million of them.
Only 7 million in what? That's 1% of our society, right? Yeah, it's 1%. We're 600x million. Like 660 million.
You mean in America?
Yeah, well, these statistics for America.
I thought that it was less than that.
We have 660 million roughly. I mean, Google it if you want, but roughly speaking,
is that there's billions of people on this planet, 1%, so they're off by like a factor of hundreds.
1%
from the total number of people on the planet, which is why I'm just
But no, that's what they're saying. They're like, in America, we're seeing 1% of the population that doesn't want to work, and we're seeing 2% of the male population that doesn't want to work and doesn't see any reason to engage with working. You don't see that in other developed countries.
Other developed countries aren't as diverse as America.
Okay, so maybe that's the explanation. But whatever the explanation is, they're saying this seems like a problem that's emerging in the last decade or two. No,
that's not true.
Okay.
No.
Can I finish my point?
No, there has always been 1% of the population who does not want to work, is not mentally well. In the past, those people have produced art, been musicians, done things that were not successful for them in life, but which have left a legacy of beauty behind for humanity.
So you think this statistic is
not new,
misleading?
Not news. No, 1% of men are horribly depressed. They have always been horribly depressed. And until we stop treating men like they're disposable, that will not change.
I'm going to take 2 points and say, we should probably look at the statistics she's using, if she does have one, if it's cited somewhere. We'll probably
I don't care. There's no value to statistics.
It's fine. Okay, so we'll throw away the statistics.
The value to statistics is exclusively when you're trying to make general statements. We're talking about the health of a demographic. You cannot talk about it in the absence of each one of those people is an individual member of that demographic. Individuality absolutely matters. And where the logic goes wrong for all of these people is when they use the statistics to make arguments that really only provide some kind of information or insight into the whole group of men. They don't really tell you anything about the individual person, what caused that individual person to have the problems that they're having. And that's why they're trying to solve the problem in generalities as well, which will never work.
But like, okay.
The only way you solve this problem is by treating men as not statistics.
Let me try and reframe this a little bit, though, because like what this video is trying to get across is the idea that like, why do we see this growing problem societally, but specifically for young men? And they're trying to come up with an explanation. Your explanation is
that it's not growing.
Well,
that the number of statistics in the past has not been present, so we can't compare that to the past. We don't actually have a velocity here.
Okay, so you're saying like they're misdiagnosing with statistics.
Yes.
And I mean, I think you're kind of
over relying upon them, and in doing so, treating men like numbers on a page.
But you do agree with the idea purported before that like part of this is how men are sort of culturally told to bottle up their emotions and not display like their individuality and that kind of stuff.
Men are told that their feelings don't matter.
So like. That's where I think they're maximizing. You're saying there's another narrative that they're missing, which is that like men as a whole are just sort of viewed as...
Men's feelings have never mattered.
Yeah, and you're saying this is like a historical and cultural trend for thousands of years.
Yes,
and
thousands!
We're looking at it here in this video as like...
As if it's brand new.
Trend in
as if it's just
years.
Started happening and our men are uniquely not prepared for it. It's like, no, they've never been prepared for it, which is why we have the patriarchy. Okay? Because of fragile male egos. Hello? So why don't we focus on making their egos less fragile by not treating men like statistics? They are individual people. All of them are depressed for different individual reasons. You can't just say, everyone in society treats men like rapists, and that's why men are miserable. That's not true. Men are still miserable even when they're not treated like rapists. I have a husband I can link to you.
Oh, fair enough. So I mean, I agree and disagree with certain parts of this, but like, I generally do agree with the thrust of your idea that it's like, it's because men are sort of marginalized societally in some form or fashion. They're not viewed as individuals.
They're not viewed as individuals.
But I don't think that's a masculine issue. I think like our society, this goes back to the Richard Roderick. I really need to go look up his name. It's Rick Roderick, I think is his name. He does the Self Under Siege series. It's like the 6-hour series.
Rick Roderick.
I think it's Rick Roderick. Rick Roddick. I think it's RickRodddick or something like that. Anyways, loved his series on the Self Under Siege back from the 90s, and I linked it to you and you watched one video.
I watched one video. It's
I think that he would agree with you that the biggest problem in society today isn't like leftist narratives or rightist narratives. It's that we, as a society, it's difficult to be an individual it's growing increasingly more difficult to become an individual in modern society, because modern society asks you to homogenize yourself and asks you to sort of, or it sort of eschews the idea that like an individual has value.
I don't think that's the reason at all.
I mean,
I think that there are so many people in the world that the number of people who are genuinely unique is smaller than it's ever been.
You think globalization is the problem?
Yes, and people are more like each other because they're more exposed to each other. So as we have more empathy, as we evolve as a species, people will have less individuality, because look at highly evolved species like mushrooms and ants. The bodies are just drones for a hive soul. That is what evolution does to people. That is what empathy does. It makes people over time less individual and more collective, because the truth is that we are one being experiencing itself. That's the truth. That's the one underlying truth. So as things go on, anything ordered will become more ordered. Order begets order. Unless you add chaos to the mix, it propagates order. And as it becomes more ordered, it becomes more disordered, because a truly ordered system has maximum entropy, has maximum chaos. Everything is moving however it feels like moving. That's how you know that it's at equilibrium. So it's like it's like a dichotomy that's not really dichotomous because it's a duality and both of those things are true at the same time. But people don't like that, so they treat it like a dichotomy. It's either we are individual beings or we are a collective being. But the truth is that it's both. So all beings evolve towards collective consciousness because that is the true nature of the universe. We are just in this weird phase in between because we have just recently invented the internet, which for us as language-based beings that rely on our physical senses, the internet is really required for that kind of evolutionary change. You need to have some sort of mechanism that converts language into universal experience. And that's what the internet does. The internet is the first thing in the existence of modern humanity that is by itself strong enough to drive the evolution of a species as evolved as humans already are.
Would you say, so I guess I have to ask the question, and it's probably obvious, but would you say that globalization is a problem, or this move towards the sort of communal consciousness is a problem, and that we need to be moving away from that?
No.
Okay. So it's not that we need to be more individualistic.
We need to celebrate life in its simplicity. We need to celebrate that every experience is beautiful, whether it is a unique experience or not. You can watch the same movie 15 times and still learn something if you're really watching it, if you don't let yourself zone out because it's so familiar. So we need to learn as a species. We need to evolve to appreciate repetitious behavior, which is why I believe autism is the next evolutionary step for humanity. It is an adaptation that allows us to derive meaning from repetitious experiences, which will be required because we will eventually run out of new experiences to experience. There's episodes of Stargate that talk about this.
I mean, I think logically that sort of makes sense, but I think the sort of bandwidth of like human calculations and interpretability prevent us from ever like really fully experiencing everything that humanity has to offer. I think this is sort of the new debate, and maybe
for now.
Well, maybe this is a problem, or maybe this is a misguided attempt. But a lot of what like I hate to invoke this, but Elon Musk's like Cyberlink or whatever. One of the problems that he at least says he wants to solve is that humans have now a bandwidth problem where it's like we have so much information, so much like sort of experiences, but we don't have good ways to communicate them between each other. The internet's like sort of exploded our ability to communicate our experiences together, but that's only revealed the sort of cracks in the difference in our experiences. So it's like there's subtle differences in the way I experience something, the subtle way you experience something, and there's also a vast amount of like contextual knowledge that I have. And so when I want to communicate something to you like authentically or truly, it can't be expressed in a simple like dialogue like this. We need like a sort of neural interface, or we need something that can like help us translate that experience in a more direct way, or help us interpret information like an auxiliary brain or something.
We don't need any new equipment. We need to learn how to use the equipment we already have. The brain is capable of imagining a reality in which it itself does not exist. So you can experience.
You don't think it's a brain, or you don't think it's a.
It is not a physical limitation of humanity. It's an
imagination problem.
You can use your imagination to transcend metaphysical boundaries, and you can come to know things beyond space and time. And that is how the imagination works. You can make something that is not real in this reality. In this reality, you will never stumble upon the modern conception of zombies, animated flesh that somehow has will and acts in some... No, okay, that's never going to happen, because the amount of energy required to animate a zombie is so great that the body systems, if they're infected, they're not going to be able to do that. So the closest thing that you could get to zombies is like people not being able to move because they're slowly being eaten alive by fungus, which I have personally experienced in an intense vision in a dream once. Okay, so you can take things, though, like the idea of animated flesh that can move incredibly quickly and somehow is still alive in a sense, and you can make that real in our reality, and in the sense that you can be really afraid of zombies. You can genuinely feel fear for this thing that is still impossible.
Yeah.
What's really happening when the brain does that? What's really happening is that you're folding through a higher number of dimensions, which you can't do physically, but which things do all the time on a level of physics that we don't experience physically. And so it's not a metaphysical, it's not a supernatural phenomenon. It is a metaphysical reality that you can perceive of things beyond space and time. And you can know them before you can know them. That is a thing that is easily justified with modern science.
See, and
I have a whole series on that on my other channel, if anyone's interested. I'll put the link in the description.
it's really interesting because I'll have you here and say, like, I think for most people, they're gonna take what you say and think you're just crazy and disregard you. But I'm gonna try and steelman you here.
Then they're wrong. Then they're wrong, and they will know that one day.
Well, I'm gonna try and steelman you here and say that there are a handful of philosophers, some of which, so there's two major points here. One major point that certain philosophers will steel me on is basically just that, like, yeah, when you dig into the science and when you dig into physics, or when you dig into like the sort of philosophical questions that are sort of grounding reality, or that we haven't been able to answer and have no answers, the only thing you can say is that there must be some sort of like deity beyond this, or there must be some kind of intelligence beyond this. At least that's like the most logical.
I don't even think you can say that.
I'm not going to put words in their mouth. I'm not going to say I understand it. I'm just saying, like,
those words have meanings that are inherently mortal, and the consciousness that transcends is beyond mortality.
My point is that there are people who agree with you in saying, like, that they've done a lot of studies, whether they're in physics or whether they're in, well, I guess physics would be the biggest one. And they basically say, like, yeah, you come out the other side and you say, well, it doesn't leave you in this sort of atheist position, which a lot of people sort of assume it will.
It won't.
It basically says, well, there's certain gaps in our knowledge that just can't be filled any other way. Like they're sort of illogical or contradictory, and you must believe in some sort of higher order of things, or something that like exists outside of these.
That's not it at all.
That's not what you're trying to go for?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So
in short, the reason why there must be consciousness on higher planes of existence, okay, which when we say that, what we mean is consciousness exists in the 4 dimensions we experience: height, width, depth, and time. And it exists in a physical way. It exists as a consequence of embodied beings that have the equipment required to sustain consciousness. However, the true nature of all things, even the energy that forms macroscopic physics, the true nature of that energy is inherently 10-dimensional. It exists in a higher number of dimensions and is capable of doing things physically across a greater number of dimensions than we can physically observe. Okay? It is not a physical phenomenon. But because the higher dimensions, where are these higher dimensions? They're not places you travel to. They are dimensions of matter. They are dimensions, just like height, width, and depth, and time. They represent axes, okay? But instead of defining physical space, they define metaphysical space. They define foundational physics, okay? So where are the higher planes of existence? Everywhere, in everything. They are concealed from us. In Kabbalah, they use the term concealment. In physics, they use the term concealment. That is the truth. You can't see them. It's like when you look at a laundry line from far away, a hanging laundry line, it just looks like a line. You get up closer and you realize it's got another dimension. You can go around it. Well, that's how it is with physics too. You're so big that you just can't see them. But you can see them when you isolate individual particles. And that's where you get quantum weirdness, the technical term. That's where you get this weird behavior. Physics is physically different in a greater number of dimensions.
Where can we go to learn more about this?
I already told people. I have a whole series that I told you to watch.
Is it going to be linked in the chat below?
It'll be in the top bar. There's going to be a card
top,
that they click
not the
on.
bottom. Okay.
Oh, for the love of God.
I can only think of one dimension.
Where are the higher dimensions? Everywhere. They are within everything. All 10 dimensions are properties of all matter, which is essentially just energy. So, if we are conscious, then, therefore, consciousness exists on all levels of existence, including in the higher numbers of dimensions, where physics doesn't have to obey the same physical laws. So there must be higher consciousness because it's all one thing. There's not really a lower, medium, and higher. In reality, there's just a universe. We are the ones who categorize it as such.
Do you think that this is sort of your Plato's Republic, where we went from reviewing a Vaush YouTube clip to sort of metaphysical analysis of the universe?
Well, you're the one who started saying, well, there must be a God for these reasons, and they were not the right reasons.
Well, I didn't say anything about God. Well, I guess I did, actually. But my point is, do you think that this is our Plato Republic? Because if it is, then you're at like chapter or book 6. We have to start coming down now.
Oh, does he go backwards? Is that...
No. I mean, this is unimportant. We should do Plato's Republic at some point.
Might be all cut out. I have a whole playlist on just the metaphysics that steps you through every single scientific principle required to draw these conclusions for yourself.
Plato basically starts at like trying to build a society, and he gets into a bunch of like minutiae of like building the society, and then like midway through chapters 5 and 6 or whatever are mostly talking about how he thinks.
Does he think that there is an objective best way to build a society?
Well, so if you read it at face value, then yes. But it's very clear that he contradicts himself many, many times. So either you have to conclude that he's an idiot, or he's an idiot, or he's asking you.
I've always thought.
Or he's asking you to sort of question what he's saying critically. And it's clear, especially in like I don't know if it's 4 through 6 or 5 and 6, but it's clear the way that he talks about sort of education and the way to become a philosopher is to critically examine and be sort of a skeptic of the things that you're being told. It's clear that like if you apply that to his own work, he's creating these contradictions that, again, either he's an idiot or he's creating contradictions that if you're doing what he... The problem with Plato is that there are certain through lines that make sense, and if you take the through lines and apply them to the rest of the piece, then it recontextualizes itself into like a very interesting philosophical masterpiece. But if you just read it at face value, you're like, this guy's a fucking idiot. So I don't know. Maybe we'll get into it.
I am bad at reading things that are written as metaphors.
Well, so Luke, you know, our
mutual
thing, Luke, our mutual acquaintance. There you go. Our mutual acquaintance, Luke. You know, I'm not going to put words in your mouth.
He doesn't want to be my friend.
So Luke thinks that Plato wouldn't get his PhD today. He thinks Plato and Socrates are kind of idiots. He thinks that they're kind of dumb. No,
they probably would get their PhD because they were wealthy.
Well,
that's probably how they got their PhD back then. People seem to think that life today is so different than it was then, and it really just is not.
Anyways, going back through, we did a Plato's Republic series where we did like a book a week or a book a month or something, and I did a great courses on it and all this stuff. It is really fascinating. It is either it either lucks itself into being a masterpiece of interpretation, or it's just like a piece of garbage. And it's like, I mean, I'm going to go with the odds and say, like, you know, you can't luck yourself into being a masterpiece of interpretation. That just doesn't happen. But Luke seems to think like that. Yeah, it's kind of garbage.
Happens? You don't think that ever happens?
Well, we got to go back through Plato's Republic at some point. Then I've got it on audiobook. We can do it anytime. No.
The problem is that we can't read it if we're not going to read it in Latin.
Oh, well, fair enough. I don't think they were using Latin then. I think it would be in Greek. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Don't quote me.
Well, I'm better at Greek than Latin, so
Well,
that
I
would
don't
be
understand
fine.
either, so.
That would be
you
totally
know.
acceptable. I've read
But-
the Septuagint in Coptic, so.
But we should go back through it at some point. It's very sort of telling experience. One of the interesting parts about Plato's Republic is like book 7 or 8, kind of like on the point I got into this is that like there's a sort of build up where he does a lot of practical things, and then he gets to sort of like metaphysics of like education and like.
I would
curriculum
love
reforms.
to read his
And
metaphysics.
then it sort of comes down into a more practical trend again. In the sort of come down to the practical trends, he talks about the best types of societies. And he talks about democracies, which are like honor-based societies, democracy, dictatorships, and aristocracies. Maybe, I don't think he talks about oligarchies, but I guess oligarchies would be kind of like aristocracies. Anyways, he talks about the 4 main kinds, and he says democracies are the best. After that, it's democracy, and then it's like aristocracy.
What's a democracy?
A democracy is where like the person with the most honor rules. So it's like
Person with the most honor. How do
so
they
it's like-
measure the honor? Is
Well-
that like 5 chapters out of his book? Because if it is,
No,
then we can
it's
just skip that.
No, it's not that long. As far as I understand it, and somebody who knows more about this will say that I'm wrong.
Please do comment.
The democracy, as I understood it, is more like how the Greek societies used to work, where the leaders of the Greek societies would be like these warriors. They'd be like,
Okay.
why can't I think of Greek myths right now?
Because they're poorly written and largely about rapists. I don't know.
Well, whatever. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on this. Anyways, it doesn't matter. It's basically like the Greek heroes, and the reason that they're leaders is because they're the most meritocratic in terms of like honor. They went out and they won battles, and they did the things that like society purported that they should do.
Okay.
And because of that, we reward them with the ability to lead the country, and like that's good, right?
All right.
Plato goes through like how these societies transition from one to another and like the sort of strengths and weaknesses of each one, and he uses it as a sort of device to explain why his sort of most just republic is the best. Then he sort of deconstructs why a just republic or a republic that maximizes justice is problematic, if you read between the lines. Anyways, the whole point of this is that when he talks about democracy, he has a handful of things to say. He says democracy is where people, are allowed to live private lives. They can practice philosophy. He lives in a democracy at the time. He says you need to live in a democracy to write any kind of law about any other type of society. If you're going to write the sort of like dictates of how a country should operate, you need to at least at some point have lived in a democracy. But then he goes, and so he has like a lot of positive things to say, and then he goes and rails against it to say it's actually trash. Like, fuck democracy, it's shit. Anybody who lives in a democracy, like, the state doesn't govern how they should think about things, and so they just end up thinking about like random errant thoughts, and sometimes that's good, most of the time it's bad, and like, fuck democracy, basically. And I can't tell if it's a through line. My personal take on Plato's Republic is that he criticizes the things that he's most appreciative of, in the sense that it's like a critic will like maybe lambaste like a movie that they love, and at the end of it you'll be like, wow, you must have hated the movie, and then I'll give it like a 9 out of 10. I feel like that's what Plato's doing with like democracy, where he like is very critical of it, but at the end of the day it's like, depending on your interpretation, he's also very positive on it. But the modern interpretation is that he hates democracy, and I disagree with that. Anyways, I'm going to end my rant on Plato's Republic unless we want to go read it.
I don't want to read it right now. Let's watch more
Let's read
Vaush.
it right fucking now.
Okay, instead of reading Plato's Republic, let's watch Vaush.
Okay. Back to the important shit. Sorry. I did want to do one. This will be quick. I want to do one last bridge and say there are a couple really interesting philosophers, and there's one that I really discredited in my college education about imagination and its importance to the human like spirit, or towards like human.
You didn't think that was important, but I was your best friend. How is that possible?
Yeah, I hate you. I don't know how we got on that.
Have you learned nothing?
But there was a philosopher I learned when I was getting my minor that basically his big contribution was that imagination is what makes humans special, because we can create things that don't exist, and we can annihilate things that like do or don't exist within our own minds, and that's reality to us.
It doesn't make humans special. It makes all living creatures special.
Sure, it's just like it was
Does
a
he think
concept.
humans are the only people that can imagine this?
I'm not gonna. Well, yes, all philosophers think humans are the only thing that matters, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, when I was studying it, I sort of discarded it as like a very weird theory, but or a weird thing to sort of hyper focus on. As I get older and as I hear like your position and a handful of other people's positions, I have to come back around and say that like our imagination is, or at least the imagination of human and living species, is a sort of interestingly special feature of us, and whether it is like a 10-dimensional sort of expression or whether it's I don't know, something else, it pops back up as a recurringly interesting theme to maybe examine. So we should do that at some point.
Well, I examine it in detail in the metaphysics series.
And you can look at that right down or up or somewhere
in the
on
chat.
The screen. She'll fix that later. Or not, I don't know. Anyways, we can get back to Vaush, but I wanted to get that point out there.
When we talk about the kinds of things that drive people out to vote or even to throw revolutions, we're usually talking about very basic gut level problems that political analysis gets added to, you know? For a long time in this country and many others, anti-immigration sentiment has been built on the anxiety of working class people who feel their jobs are threatened by immigrants. Often the data doesn't bear that out, but it's their fear that's used as a catalyst to push those politics. The anxiety, the loneliness of young men, this has historically been used as catalysts for, well, I mean, basically everything from the Bolsheviks in Russia to the brown shirts in Germany. It's just a large and often unaddressed demographic. This isn't a competition thing. We're not talking about giving up on feminist analysis or saying it's like, oh, well, actually, men have it worse than women. Right? It's not about that. It's just you want to reach out to people where they are. And to start that process, you know, with a lot of young guys, I think it would help if lefties were willing to acknowledge this sort of natural conclusion of toxic masculinity as like a mode of social analysis, which is if men are socialized in certain ways and treated in certain ways socially, it necessarily follows they must have specific problems. And if those problems are the product of social systems that are out of their control, I don't know why we wouldn't apply the same basic sociological lens of analysis to that as we would with literally anything else. Patriarchy, racism, transphobia, no individual has control over these systems. And we try to interweave analysis with our compassion for and respect for the individual problems people have. We do this all the time with other issues. And to an extent, we do it with men.
I'm not sure I understand what he's saying in this part of it.
Are you willing to go back like 30 seconds and
We
rewatch
have
it?
spent so much time on one video.
I know. It's fine. We're only going to get through one video tonight. I'm pretty sure he's actually speaking to a lot of the complaints and critiques you had about this not being like sort of individualistic enough or compassionate enough. He's sort of trying to encompass that into a larger narrative, I think, here.
Okay.
Let's sorry. Is there something specific that I'll keep my eye out for that you're looking to explain?
I just don't. I'm not following him right now. I don't know what he's trying to explain.
You're wondering what he's talking about.
I just have no idea what he's trying to convey.
But I feel like we lean off that a little bit. Maybe because men's rights as like a sort of a nominative thing, you know, like how it's referred to, usually refers to misogynist or incel communities online. So it's like, oh, well, men's rights, you actually mean like this or that. Well, leaving aside the baggage, right? You can call it what you want. Men's advocacy, whatever, just common decency. It's still worth pursuing.
Yeah, I think the phrasing men's rights activists, it does unfortunately make one recall some of the most unsavory individuals imaginable, right? Some who think that rape should be legalized. So I don't like thinking about that group when it comes to this particular issue, because I don't think this is about male entitlement. I don't think this is about men feeling or fighting for a system in which men get to feel entitled to certain things in society, including, you know, certain sexual acts, whatever it is. This is really about making sure that people don't feel lonely, feel that they have purpose in life. That's the other thing. An increasing number of young men feel like they have no purpose in life. And I think that it has to do with the fact that for the longest time, they were conditioned to believe that they are supposed to be the breadwinner in a family. And when they are lacking this educational attainment necessary to get the kind of career that makes the kind of money that makes them feel like the breadwinner, well, then it makes them feel like they're not really worth anything. I see a lot of that going on as well. When you look at the number of college educated men, that has declined significantly. And so some of the solutions that I've heard from people who do take this seriously on the left is that, hey, there's a lack of male role models in, the public education system. There's a huge disparity between female and male educators in the public school system. Curious what you think about that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is. I do think it's unfortunate that we consider education such like a feminized profession. Not because there's anything wrong with female teachers or whatever, but obviously people take a lot from their education, and any significant disparity in representation is going to reflect some kind of social value. So, I mean, we can see the need for this reflected in the fact that two of the largest breakout conservative figures in the past 5 years, respectively, Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate, both became powerful in exactly the same way. That is to say, they postured as like self-help gurus for young men who felt like they'd been failed by society and left no options to better themselves otherwise. Now, the prescriptions those two offer are garbage and completely irredeemable. I think Jordan Peterson said you should clean your room. You can do that, but apart from that, don't listen. But it shows what people are going for, right? And frankly, it doesn't take a lot of internet sleuthing to find out that a lot of people are feeling really listless these days. You have to give people identities and aspirations. I see a lot of this discussion with young women. One of the discourse bits that always comes up, it's how do you be a good feminist, but also like, what about this feminine wiles thing, right? Or like, how do I balance my progressive attitudes on gender with this, that, the other attitude I have on what it means to be a woman. It's an interesting topic. I have no skin in the game. Good luck, right? I don't know how often that gets resolved in left spaces with guys, because it is a good question. How do you resolve, progressivism with like, well, being a masculine guy? A lot of women you might want to date kind of do like manly guys, at least some of them, right? But what does it mean to be manly in a context that isn't, Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson? Just having the conversation might get a lot of folks invested, or they might understand that the left is interested in these issues beyond a sort of like token, like surface level political skim where they're trying to get people off the top. Compassion.
Yeah, compassion's the right word, I think. And, you got a lot of backlash for talking about this. And, you might tweet about it, but where I've heard you actually talk about this issue at length is on your streams. And I think you're thoughtful in the way you talk about this issue, but you still get hit with, oh, you're just a secret right winger from your critics, right?
It's been known to happen. I know
what's behind that, because I feel like that is what most of, at least the online left, I don't know if I can say that about the left in general. They seem to spend a lot of time going after one of their own who might have some ideas that are a little different, or might have concerns that are a little different from their own.
Okay, but why is she acting like the left doesn't already understand the need for men's rights? Because like there's an episode of Parks and Rec from like 8 years ago where they didn't. Like, I don't understand. So, I don't know anybody who's on the left who doesn't care about men's rights. I don't know anyone.
Okay, I mean, maybe you are reacting to this and saying like this whole concept doesn't exist, that they're attacking a straw man. They're both center left or leftist leaning.
I mean, how do you make it more palatable to the left? Like, it is palatable to the left. The left already cares about men's rights.
They're saying the communities they engage with are not, and they prescribe themselves as left.
Well, okay. Well, I don't know what communities that they're in then, because I don't have those experiences.
I mean,
I just watch this as a person who's not that engaged in internet culture, and I'm just like, I don't think that most people in real life would fit the group of people that they seem to think they need help here. Like, I don't think that the group of people that they're like, the lefties, like, who are they talking about? Who?
I agreed with you. I used to agree with you.
You used to agree with me. Oh, okay. So I'm just naive.
The more and more I engage
Bless my heart.
certain friends that we have, and like just
certain
people,
friends that we have. Oh, that's interesting. Which
the more
friends?
and more I agree, the more and more I engage with certain people, the more and more I realize like what I take for like common sense is like fucking, I don't know, it's digging through the trenches, and like it's a lifetime of self-discovery and like a midlife crisis for other people. And so that's why, like, when I listen to this, I'm like, yeah, this is all real basic shit, but I understand that there are a lot of people who are my age that just like need to hear this, or they need some sort of vehicle towards a good life that they don't currently have. They haven't figured out life, and it's creating a lot of despair or a lot of doubt or a lot of like, it's creating a lot of doubt, and they're just trying to snatch up narratives that they think will help guide them to a good life. And the left doesn't have a lot of good narratives, and the right does.
Okay,
and
so
they snatch
that's
up
what we should do. We should just write a narrative. Is that it? We should write a recipe. We should write a cookbook.
The left should have more narratives for young, disaffected men, and the position here. I'm not saying I agree with this. I do agree with this.
You do agree with this. You
I do
do
agree
think
with
that
this.
we can prescribe wellness to people en masse. I don't think that's possible.
Okay.
I think they're asking for
I
the
agree
impossible.
with you. No,
and because
no,
they
shut
think
up.
there's a group of
Shut
people
up.
who don't care.
Listen to
but
me
that's
now.
that doesn't even exist.
I agree that we cannot prescribe the good life to people. I am very against the idea that we can prescribe the good life to people.
I don't think it's possible.
But I do think we can give them a blueprint, a general idea of how to pursue the good life that they can internalize and then self-reflect and map to their own life. It doesn't have to tell them like you need to do X, Y,
That
or
was
Z.
that was why they wrote the Bible and then translated it into every language.
Well, we need a Bible for the 21st century.
Do we need a Bible in the 21st century?
I do. I'm gonna go write it.
No, I don't think we need one.
No.
I think the problem is this. These men don't believe.
These dirty fucking men. That's the tone you're using right now, by the way. These fucking men.
That's
These fucking
not-
idiots. It's very naive-esque of you. You're just like, fucking, let me pull my braid. Let me pull my braid over here. Fucking men.
I don't have a braid.
I know. I'm trying to pull your bun
stop.
back here.
Don't. And you're projecting. Okay, because listen, that's not my tone. Look, these men that are in these positions that are like that feel like they don't have support. The problem is that they don't believe. Stop it. This is exactly what we talked about. It's distracting.
Okay. Sorry, I had to do it one time.
The men in these positions that they're talking about that are like despairing, they don't believe in themselves. Like they don't believe that they deserve happiness. They don't believe that they have the skills to attain happiness. And if they did believe that they deserved and could attain happiness, they would be able to without a prescription. So the problem is not that they need a prescription. It's that they need faith, not in God, but in themselves.
But telling people that they need faith is a prescription, right?
Well, maybe, but I think it's an anti-prescription. Because I'm saying if anyone is trying to prescribe you something, they're trying to use you, they're trying to mobilize you, they are treating you like a statistic. Anyone who is coming up with prescriptions, Vaush, is using his community. He makes money off of people's emotional states. He makes money off of it. That's why he does everything he does.
I think that this is a real point of debate you could bring up with him at some point. It's not hard.
If
to
I
answer.
ever get into a debate with him, then you will see exactly what it's like
He used to debate people on his channel. And he might.
to use actual reasoning for 5 minutes.
If you become big enough, he'll debate you.
How big is big enough?
Not very big. He debates people I've never heard of all the time.
Maybe I just need to say something evocative enough. You've got a small dick.
No. You have to sort of catch. He has to think it's going to be worth debating you.
Okay, here's a good one. We should talk about what it means to be masculine.
Well, okay, sorry. This is a question that I think Vaush, Jordan Peterson, and ContraPoints all agree are like, quintessential to the 21st century. I agree. It's the only reason I thought Jordan Peterson, well, maybe not the only reason, but one of the only reasons that I liked Jordan Peterson early on is that, like, he's bringing to light a question about sort of like the way the sort of narrative lens through which, like, men look at their lives, and the way that the 21st century doesn't have a good explanation for that. I think they're all sort of in agreement that that's a problem.
I don't think that there is no good explanation for it.
ContraPoints. Well, okay, I'm just listening to me here. ContraPoints also brought this out, and she had a long video essay about it. But what she came to is that like, I can't tell you how men should live their lives. Men have to figure it out for themselves. Jordan Peterson is giving like basic self-help advice, but it's the same shit.
Wait a second.
Like,
wait a second. I can't tell you how men should live their lives. Can't tell you that.
are you a trans woman?
No.
Are you ContraPoints of this, guys?
No, I'm a cis woman.
But you can't lie to me. You can't. You have to tell me if you are. Right?
Is that the loss?
I don't know. Oh. I hope so.
Okay. No, I am not a trans woman.
At some point, we should probably explain our relationship to people, but
which is irrelevant.
It's probably unimportant. Well, you probably shouldn't ever even talk about it.
What was I going to say?
I said something about how ContraPoints and JP and even Vaush are all saying that there needs to be like a 21st century masculine narrative, but nobody knows what it is.
Okay, I know what it is to be a man. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is that men should do.
Is that because you...
But I know what it is to be a man.
Are a trans woman who used to be a man.
No. Why are you saying that?
I'm just saying that's something that a trans woman would say. No, that's probably not true.
I know what it is to be masculine because masculinity has an objective definition.
Spicy. I don't think I agree with this, but...
No, you will agree with this.
Lay it out.
It's just facts. Okay. Masculinity, as defined by human biology, is the ability to piss on everything without getting any of it on yourself.
I forgot about this. I'm sorry. I wasn't ready. Lay it on me again. I'm sorry. Now I'm fully prepared.
When human beings are born, the first thing that they do is piss and shit on everything they can. They just let it out. This is the first thing they do. This is their first experience in the waking world. Okay? And the thing is that it does matter. The physical hardware that we have, our biological parts, are different. They function in different ways, vastly different. Getting wet and getting hard are fundamentally different activities, okay? And they're not even closely related. So even if people want to argue, well, men were originally women and then the penis drops. Yes, but the fact of the matter is that in order to have a penis or a vagina, your brain has to be wired, and your body as well, to do different things. You have to have certain software to use your hardware. So what does it mean to be born a man? It means that you are born with the ability to act without necessarily experiencing consequences to yourself. And that is the foundation of audacity. Male audacity, people make videos where they're like, I'm off to find male audacity. And it's like a funny joke, right? A meme. Well, that is the foundation of audacity. The audacity is that a woman has to be aware of the consequences of her actions or she will hurt herself. From the minute she is out of the womb in the world and pees, she realizes there's no way to do that without getting it on herself. The very first experience a woman has is humility. And the very first experience a man has is audacity. Because the foundational objective truth is that men are prone to act and women are prone to react and receive. That's it. Prone. It's a blueprint. You're born with this software. That does not mean you shouldn't change your sex. You shouldn't be bisexual. You shouldn't have gay sex. You shouldn't do childcare as a man or be a breadwinner as a woman. It doesn't mean anything at all. It doesn't mean anything. But the truth is, men are prone to act and women are prone to react and receive. Because that is our biology. That is how our physical parts behave. And our software has to interface with those parts. So our very earliest pathways that we form in our brain and our body have to do with a proneness to act or a proneness to react. So women will always be more inclined to think before they act. That's why you have fewer female billionaires. Because men are more inclined to take risks that they didn't even know were risks. They will risk everything. That's also why. So you have more male billionaires. You also have more male homeless people. You have more male addicts because they're more likely to do something before they think it through and not realize how much they'll regret it. You have more male gambling problems. So the foundation in how we have to handle mental health between the different sexes in society is driven by biology, by objective truths. Men are prone to taking risks, to not thinking things through, to not being as aware of their surroundings, and what I call the definition of audacity, men are more inclined to not realize when they have made an assumption. They don't know what they don't know. And that is the foundation of masculinity. Men being too strong for their own good, doing dumb fucking shit.
So
that's masculinity. That's what it is to be a man.
If I'm gonna try and encapsulate this real quick, you're saying that there is a definition of masculinity.
Yes.
It is biologically derived in some sense or another because of your genitalia at birth.
I'm saying that there is an objective definition of masculinity that can be derived from biology. It is not the only definition of masculinity.
Okay, I was going to dig on that. I guess
it is the one that is objective. It is the one that is derived by biology, so it should, at least for the vast majority of people, apply.
So I guess my question is we haven't really touched on trans issues too much, but there is a big question in the trans community as to, what is masculinity? If you are a woman, but you feel more in line with masculine traits, is that some sort of like transcendental aspect of your soul? There's a discussion in the trans community as to what makes you trans or sort of maybe the nature of being a trans person, which is to say that like you are born into a male or a female body, but somehow transcendentally you are the opposite gender, or you're somewhere in between, or you're something else. But then there's another sort of explanation for this or discussion around this point that says, well, maybe there isn't anything as masculinity or femininity. There's just people, and the concepts of masculinity and femininity are socially derived, and people choose, or maybe they don't choose, but they're sort of like guided towards some vague feeling of what they think masculinity means. And so that's how some women will feel like, oh, I'm more masculine, so I must be a guy, so that must mean I am a man in a woman's body, or vice versa. And so the question is, what I think there's an important question of like, what makes someone trans? Is it like a transcendental part of their soul? Is it sort of a culturally learned thing?
Why are people trans?
I'm asking you. I don't have an answer. I have no fucking idea.
Okay.
There's not a gay bone in my body. Except this one. My dick.
Trans people are individuals, and all of them have different stories. And when I say things like men are prone to audacity and women are prone to reactivity and more awareness, these are general statements. I have found oftentimes that women are prone to audacity, and not just trans women, cis women too. They do experience audacity as much as men do, especially when they've experienced sexual trauma. Like is in their youth, it's very common. Women that have like PCOS, that have high testosterone or imbalances in their hormones, often they also can demonstrate audacity, even though that doesn't really, it's not a clear reflection of a person's identity. Your identity is, in part, your physical body. Because your physical body is what makes you not a part of the collective unconscious. Without your physical body, without the vessel for your unique consciousness, there is no unique consciousness. There's no you. You are, in part, you are your body. If you were to say that to any other animal species, by the way, they would think humans are dumb as rocks for not believing that. Okay? But that doesn't stop people from having a bad relationship with their body. Because we have built biased frameworks on top of the truths. We've said men are prone to act, so they should be the workers, the soldiers, the protectors, period. Why? A woman thinks things through really well, has a good mind for strategy, is generally good at making decisions that aren't too risky. That's why you see a lot of women who are very happy and successful, but not a lot of women who are billionaires or homeless, right? Because men are the ones that take those risks. So women are well suited to male roles in society if they use their divergent characteristics constructively. And men can do the same with childcare. So there are a lot of things that I would inherently do better than my husband, even though he's the childcare parent. But one thing he does really well is that we have our daughter's very sensitive and just like still is being rocked at 3 years old. She's still being rocked to sleep, and she wouldn't sleep without that. She's 50 pounds. I could never rock her to sleep. He will just pick up both of his children and carry them around like it's not 70 pounds in his arms. I could never do that. So they have a level of safety and security, and they get more of what they want from their father because he is capable in ways that a woman is not, which is sometimes a bad thing, because then I have to be the strict one and come along and be the bad cop, because he will give in to them, and Gala will cry because she is trying to make her daddy do something. Like, she'll manipulate him. And he will allow it because men are terrible at dealing with their feelings. And like, he just wants her to be happy and have everything she wants at all times, even though that's bad for her. So there are times when men and women will have different challenges based on their different capabilities in different roles. But that doesn't mean that a man couldn't do a role or a woman couldn't do a role. It just means that they have different challenges that they have to learn how to overcome with their different unique skill sets. So essentially, I guess what I'm trying to say is it is possible to objectively define masculinity, but it isn't possible to entirely define it, because there's always going to be a subjective component of it that has to do with how a person relates to the objective truths. So you can't prescribe masculinity, but you can define it in an objective way, as long as you also allow for the subjective.
I'm trying to count off my points here. I've got 3 points.
Okay.
But I'll probably forget 2 of them, or 1 of them at least.
Don't forget your points, just say them.
So, the idea that there is an objective definition or a biological definition for masculinity, and that implies a sort of definition for femininity as well, right? A biological one, right? So an active question within the trans community as to what is gender, how do we define it, what are its cultural aspects, and one of these answers is that it's biologically driven. There are biological traits to masculinity and to femininity, and that we can, sort of divide people or categorize them based off of how they associate with these biological traits. And that's how we're going to define masculinity or femininity, and if you're a man or a woman. Other people seem to think it's a more transcendental state. It's a sort of state of your soul, or something more intrinsic to yourself, where your soul is sort of feminine, but you're born to a masculine body, or vice versa. And that's how they define or being a trans person, and that you're trying to get closer to what you think your soul is supposed to be. And that's a sort of active debate as to what does it mean when someone says, I'm a man, but I feel like a female, or I associate more with like femininity, or vice versa. What does that mean? Is it transcendental? Is it part of your soul? Is it a cultural norm that you are perceiving and that you are associating yourself with? It sounds like you're saying, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're saying that there is an objective biological definition for masculinity and femininity, and people who are trans are sort of tapping into the biological norm? No. Okay, so explain.
No, the objective definition of masculinity is only statistical. It is only a blueprint. It is...
I'm sorry, but you have earlier said that you don't like statistics and we shouldn't use them.
We should not use statistics to explain subjective truth, because statistics by definition are inherently and necessarily objective, which means that they cannot give you any answers or solutions or prescriptions to subjective problems.
They can just describe things with.
They can only describe.
They're descriptive, not prescriptive.
The rough nature of truths across rates. So when I say that something is statistical, I'm saying that this is a general truth. Okay, it is derived from the same forces that give rise to testosterone and estrogen. Why are men and women different? Well, because women grow children and men don't. And that's why they're different. They have to be different to be able to do those things, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, the foundational difference in hardware that gives rise to a wiring in your brain, that software, that can't really go away. When someone, they've taken scans of people's brains. I have citations on this, good ones.
And the link's below, obviously.
And when they control for sexual orientation, they found that the only part of the lobe that actually really lights up when a person is trans is the one here in the middle center of the brain that governs your identity. And they can't use that to diagnose transgenderism because it also lights up in people who have eating disorders, body dysmorphia, any kind of identity issue or egotism or self-obsession as well. Any sort of issue of the identity can result in overactive part of the brain. I never remember the terms. I don't have a brain for remembering things. Just concepts. And the concept that is necessary to understand here is that that's not really a biological phenomenon. When you can't diagnose a person's condition using objective measures, it is not an objective phenomenon. It is a subjective one that doesn't make it invalid. How people relate to the objective truths that have then given rise to the gender roles that we have in society. You know, men are stronger, so they're soldiers. Men are risk takers, so, you know, they are CEOs. Men are whatever, okay? So the differences in the facts have given rise to a system that is flawed because the facts are statistical and the people that participate in the system are individuals. And as a result of that, people can have issues relating to the facts. You know, my body is this way, so I should be this way. They can have that problem, and that's not an invalid problem to have. But what I found is this. I don't know any woman, biological woman, or passing trans woman. I don't know any actual woman who is treated and viewed as and seen to be a woman by everyone and is unanimously just, this is a woman. I don't know anyone like that who is yelling at people for not using their pronouns and then knocking over shelves in a grocery store, who is aggressively attacking people or calling them, what could possibly be more inherently masculine than calling someone a whore because they don't want to have sex with you, right? That's basically what they're doing. If you don't want to have sex with me, you're a transphobe, i.e. take my dick, because most of them still have one, a fem dick, whatever you want to call it, it's a dick. Take it or you're a transphobe is the same bullshit that women have always gotten from people with dicks. So the foundation of their audacity has not changed. And when they do scans of transgender people's brains who have transitioned, they have found that the brain looks more like the target sex, but not identical. And the reason is because you can't undo the amount of time that you spent having to have certain software to use your hardware. Those pathways are wired. They're the most foundational pathways you have. You pee and shit and have to use your reproductive or your excretory organs in that capacity. They're also reproductive later in life, but you have to use them in their different ways from the instant that you're born, before you can speak, before you have an idea of what gender even is, before you even have a sense of self, you know how to shit and piss. And people don't like it. They think it's crass. But it's the truth that it matters how your body and brain is wired. When they do the studies, they control for sexual orientation, they found you can't really properly, fully transition to the opposite sex because you can't undo the amount of time that you've lived as the sex you were born as. Your brain is wired differently because of it, and you can't undo that. After many, many years, if you've always kind of been different, you've never really been like a man in society, you've never really thought that way, then it's easy, right? And that's when you get people like Blair White. She goes in a room full of people, and they're all different kinds of people. And there's also trans women in the room who are not really women and don't come across as women or act like women or look like women. Okay? And they are not treated like women. They are not constantly interrupted. They are not spoken over. They are not mansplained to. Nobody treats them like women, even if they use the right pronouns. They are not experiencing womanhood in those moments. So no, you can't just force other people to see you a certain way. You have to act that way. You are defined by your actions. People that act audaciously are not feminine people. And if you want people to see you as feminine, and it matters because you're, say, in a masculine body, then you have to really embody being a woman inside for people to see that. But if you do, then people will treat you like a woman, which is great because then they'll start interrupting you and talking over you and not listening to you and just being rude to you all the time and not respecting your boundaries and all the other things that they do to Blair White in the same call. They're treating her like a woman, even though she was born a man, and nobody cares that she was born a man. Nobody cares that she didn't have bottom surgery. Nobody cares because she's a woman. She thinks and acts like a woman, and everybody can tell. If you have to fight tooth and nail for people to respect your pronouns, you're doing it wrong. You're delusional. You're not the opposite sex. Nobody believes it. Nobody buys it. Not even you buy it because you're fighting tooth and nail to defend it. That's an insecurity. That's a result of insecurity. That means that person deep, deep down knows that they are not passing. So they have to ask themselves, can I be a woman? Can I pass as a woman? Can I live like a woman? Do I even know what it is to be a woman, or am I wearing a woman as a costume? Because that does happen in today's society. And this is the problem. People will say, because there are people out there who are not women, who are like obviously men, acting like men, but dressed like women. Because they exist, therefore no trans person is valid. And that's not good logic.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with the things you're saying. I'm just not entirely sure which question you're responding to.
You asked me the question of how do trans people fit into this definition of masculinity and femininity?
Well, I think the trans activists and trans community have different ideas of what it means to be trans, and there's like 2 or 3 definitions, and I think you did give me an eloquent sort of definition that's sort of like, if I'm gonna translate this into like existentialist philosophy, I'd say it's like you're talking about the factualities of a person's existence. They're sort of like the body that they're born into informs their existence. It informs their identity in some way. Right. And it's very hard to extricate that from ourselves.
But some people, it's not normal, right? Some people are not typical. So you have people like that have high testosterone or PCOS or hormone issues. You have people that were born intersex. You have people that were just born regular, but just like never really, from the minute they knew what gender was, they didn't really feel like they were assigned the correct one because they've always thought and felt like. You have this happen where, especially as a result of trauma, sexual trauma specifically, especially in childhood trauma cases, you have this happen where women develop audacity, men develop empathy, men develop awareness and, the capability of just stopping and knowing what they don't know. It does happen. It's just not the norm. And that's why it's like, you can state the objective facts, which are our biology in some capacity influences our identity. But that isn't to say that any person who feels like they've got a mismatch is wrong about that, because they may very well think like a woman, even though they're a man, and have trouble relating to masculinity because they're not audacious. They're not, I've known people like that, lots of people, that women who are audacious, men who are not. Many of them have been trans, and many of them have not been trans. Many of them are comfortable in their bodies and with their sexuality, even though they're very neurodivergent and just not typical cases, and they don't fit into the broader spectrum of man audacious, women not, right? So
I guess my question here would be, or my follow-up here would be, we have the factualities of our bodies that inform us. I guess the question is, are you then pushing, I think the natural conclusion for me is that if you think that, there's a sort of factuality that informs our existence, but that doesn't necessarily map onto our identity. Are you then pushing for us to have a more individualistic identity? And what I mean by that is like, some people think that identity is sort of preconditioned by our existence or by our soul, by our like biology or by our soul.
Ask me the soul question again. The problem with the soul.
No, let me finish.
Okay.
my like some people think that identity is conditioned by certain things, and that might be the soul or something else. Some people think that there's nothing at the bedrock of identity, and that we just continuously project onto it. Regardless of whether you come down on that, the question is, I guess for me, how do you live a good life in the modern era, or in whatever position you find yourself in? And so if you're a trans person, how do you live a good life, regardless of whether you find yourself like feeling like my identity doesn't match my biology, or any other situation you live in? Do you think we need to be more individualistic, or do you think that society needs to change, or where do you sort of come down?
We need to abolish our whole conception of gender, which is largely based around social constructs.
That's another option.
You can't have non-binary without acknowledging that there is a binary. You can't have transgender without acknowledging that gender exists. That's just logical, right? That's just logical consequences of these things. So all of the current systems are failing immensely to actually solve problems in society, because while they may help people feel better about themselves, they don't actually help us change the way we think about sex and gender fundamentally. And the issue is this: when a person has partially transitioned, which is the most common state for people who do transition, they don't always get bottom surgery. It can be risky, and it can have a lot of unintended consequences, like winding up needing to use a catheter in your old age and nasty stuff. So there are good reasons why they don't go all out, okay? And there are a lot of people in this world who are completely okay with a person having that body, and they find that body sexually appealing. It's not a problem for them that they have that configuration of parts, right? Even if it is outside of the norm. They don't care. So my whole point is, but not everyone's into that. So you can't say, okay, I am a woman who likes vagina, and I'm a transphobe if I don't like trans women who don't have vaginas. That's not being transphobic. That's because you like vaginas and they don't have one. Okay? So what are you supposed to do about that? Nothing. But people call them transphobic because they're women, okay? They're women. They don't care if they're women. They care if they have vaginas. So the problem is not that we need more genders. It's that we need more sexes and more sexual orientations. A person who is a trans woman that has a penis is different than a person that is a trans woman that has transitioned the bottom. That is different than a biological woman.
So you're saying from your position,
eradicate gender,
you want to
eradicate social constructs, the concept of men should do this, women should do that because of whatever bullshit reasons, and just
generally
let people do what they want and be attracted to what they want.
Generally speaking, I think I agree with you, but let me cap this off and try and ask, or maybe this will be a discussion for the next time. But I think that some people have a really big issue, or they like to hyper focus on gender in terms of how it is practically different. And so like, well, we don't want women in the military, or men can't get pregnant. So it's like, it's great to say that we want to abolish like gender and gender identities, or we need to reconstruct them in a more like elastic way. But there are some like sort of hard norms that we need to still
but
consider.
those only apply, the examples you've given have only applied to sex. If we had more sexes, then the dilemma of trans men can get pregnant, which means that men can have babies. That is a logical dilemma.
So we just
It contradicts the definition of biological man. So you're making up new definition structures that invalidate the scientific terms. That's not good. You should have your new theories should always mesh with the old ones, right? So ideally what we should really do is just have multiple sexes. And then we could just say men or hypermen, supermen, whatever, can't get pregnant.
Cis men.
Right? Trans men, they can get pregnant. Right? So now you just have the category of sexes that can get pregnant and the category of sexes that doesn't. And you can call them whatever you want. Call them whatever you want.
So
you don't have to use existing terms at all.
So we're gonna define gender based off identity.
No, we're gonna define no gender. There's no such thing, and we're gonna have sex defined off of what physical parts a person could have, not their actual chromosomes.
So you're just basically. I mean, and this is a counter.
What is their body? Listen. What? No. Listen for a second.
So
what is their body physically capable of doing? Can it have babies? Because it's not really a man's body then, right? By the biological definition.
And that's
a dilemma.
It's what can your body do? That's the sex.
So now I'm just suggesting we just have like 7 sexes if we have to, and we have 7 sexual orientations if we have to.
And then identity is just completely.
Identity would have nothing. It would not depend on your sex or sex roles in society or anything socially constructed. It would just exist on its own. Your identity is not just, are you trans or not trans? Are you into women or guys or both? What color skin do you have? What do you like to do? Are you a physicist? Do you think in problem solving? Are you a diagnostician? Are you constantly trying to get to the bottom of how things work? Your identity is about way more than your sexual, how you have sex with people or how you relate to sexual concepts. Like why we have reduced the concept of identity to gender is mind-boggling for me. Because it's like the least significant part.
I think, it's fine. I generally tend to agree with you.
Of life.
But let's wrap
If you were the only person living on an island, you would not care what gender you were. Like, you wouldn't care anymore. It wouldn't matter what sex you were. It wouldn't matter. So why do we care so much about it in a society? It is inherently meaningless. What your identity is does not matter to anybody else. Like, it's your identity. It's for you. It brings you peace. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else,
I'm going to wrap this and say that, like, ultimately, and I don't know if we covered this earlier in the video or not, but I think the way to live the good life, which is what I care about, is going to be personal or subjective to your identity, and your identity is not prescriptive based off of your gender.
Your identity cannot be prescribed.
It is kind of like
your identity as a man, as a trans person, exactly.
Yeah.
Can't
it's
be
kind
prescribed.
of like a fingerprint. It's going to be slightly different based on
for
who
every
you are.
single person.
So you need to figure out what the good life for you is. Now, considering the factuality of your body and your existence might be important, but ultimately you need to do a sort of
it will influence
yourself.
It will influence you, but how much or in what ways?
Which is why the Existentialist project is the most important project, and we're going to get into it next time.
We're going to do more videos. I hope you guys like this.
I need to ask you the most important question of the night.
What?
What are we drinking?
Oh my God. The same thing.
Yeah, well, I ran out of kombucha for the night, but I'll be back next time.
Well, thank you for joining our podcast. We really enjoyed having a conversation with you. Please have more conversation with us in the comments and let us know what kinds of topics you want us to talk about in future videos. How do we...
we don't know the show name. I don't have a bit to outro until I know
what
if
we
the
just
show
are
name
like,
is.
If you're still here, thanks for joining us. This is... Wait, what did you say at the beginning? We have to get the soundbite. What did you say it was?
What?
At the very beginning, you said that we were going to be Lady F and Mr. T.
No, you're It's Lady V
Lady V.
and Mr. T.
Oh, yeah. Okay, wait. Okay, let's do it. Hi, guys. This is Lady V.
And Mr. T.
And we're doing a new podcast series for you today called...
We're supposed to say, and when you put them together, we are... Okay, whatever. You're terrible at this. Anyways.
The BT.
We're the VT Hokies. Sorry. Whatever.
So,
we're going to get that bit at some point, okay? We'll work out later.
from those of us, if you're still watching, goodbye. What do we say?
Peace, peace. West Side. Bloods in the Crips. I can't do the thing.
How about we say
Please cut that.
a blessing? Will it be like...
I'll come up with an outro once we figure out the show name, okay?
We can't record an outro later. We're going to be wearing different clothes.
What are you talking about? We can record an outro anytime we want.
Just record the outro now.
There are no rules! I don't know, you put me on the spot. I didn't think about this. I don't know.
What we have is probably fine.
Fuck. I can do an outro bit. We have an outro bit for the other one. It's like... Oh, you know what the outro bit for the other one is?
What?
It's
Oh, I know what we're supposed to say.
No.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah. Make sure to ring the bell. The outro bit for our other podcast, which I love dearly and will never be aired, is anytime the outro comes up, you say, "Hey, Tori, you want to do the outro?"
Yes.
No. You just say, "Sure, but what's the outro?"
Sure.
Or something like that. You have to ask me what's the outro in some form or fashion. So let's.
Okay, what's the outro?
No. Let's do it. Oh my god. Okay. Yeah. So that was a great podcast. Tori, you want to take us out?
Why are you calling me Tori when they're going to be Lady V?
Okay, sorry. Oh, fuck, you're right. All right. Well, that was a lot of fun. Lady V, you want to take us out?
How do I take us out?
You have to say outro. You have to say. What do you mean? Like, what's the outro? Or, do we have an outro bit or
what's
something?
the outro?
You just have to say outro somewhere in there.
Oh my god.
Okay? You just have to say the word outro in any form or fashion. Okay? You can just be like, outro. That's it. Okay. But, okay. All right. Well, that was a lot of fun. Lady V, do you want to do the outro for us?
What's the outro?